Champions Mojo is part of the CG Sports Network.
But when we go through something really disappointing, there's some sort of fire that comes out of that that's indescribable. True champions know how to take disappointments and hardships and turn them into gold. And when I went through 2016 and missing the Olympics, that year leading up into basically from when I broke out and made the USA national team in 2015, that full year up into missing the team in 2016 was the hardest year of my life.
Welcome to Champions Mojo, a podcast to bring out your inner champion. Your hosts are sisters-in-law Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker. Kelly is a former Division I head swim coach, Olympic trials qualifier, and holds national and world records in masters swimming. Maria holds world records in endurance cycling and won the world's toughest bike race, Race Across America. Both are certified health and life coaches. Our goal is to inspire you through conversations with champions. And now, your host, Kelly Pallas.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast. And as usual, I am co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hey, Maria.
Hey, Kelly. It's good to be here today. How are you?
Oh, I am doing great. And I am so excited to have this opportunity to talk with Michael Chadwick, a sprint freestyler who just keeps getting better and who holds 2 world records. Michael has been a member of the U.S. national team since 2015 and has had some seriously individual outstanding performances in relays and individual, including earning bronzes in the 50 and 100 at the 2019 Pan American Games and being part of a host of gold medal winning and world record holding relay teams. As a collegiate swimmer, Michael, who came to swimming relatively late, earned 22 total All-American honors at the University of Missouri and holds team records in the 50, 100, and 200 freestyle and the 200 IM. Maria, what else can you tell us about Michael?
Well, we know Michael comes from an athletic family. Both his father and brother played Division I basketball with all the height that comes with that. And when Michael was cut from his 7th grade basketball team, I can't imagine that must have been awful, Michael, he turned to swimming and hasn't stopped since. In the inaugural International Swimming League season, he swam for the LA Current. And for the 2020 season, he'll be a member of the newly formed Toronto Titans. He's recently moved with his wife Cassie from San Diego to Chapel Hill, North Carolina to train under Mark Gangloff. Right now, let's welcome Michael to Champions Mojo. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yes, Michael, welcome. It's great to have you here. And let's start with what have you been up to lately?
That's a great question. What is there to do lately that we haven't done 1,000 times already?
Yeah, it's getting old, isn't it?
It is. I'm learning to be creative in this household for sure. So after recently moving to Chapel Hill, my wife and I have been really trying to find like a new, direction in our life, and that has been really enjoyable. With a new move comes a lot of new experiences and a new place to call home. So we have moved into a new home ourselves and really getting to enjoy the Chapel Hill and Triangle area in North Carolina has been a blast. We love it. It's about 2 hours from where I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. So we've had really a lot of fun hiking. I've recently gotten into mountain biking outside of just the normal, swimming routines. Just trying to stay active has been a real joy. And I think oftentimes I've lost this last few years because of the, constant swimming and lifting workouts that tend to make us pretty tired.
Yeah. So what did you move during the COVID crisis or before?
We did. We moved. So when the Olympics got postponed, I guess it was about around March 20th, we basically held out for about a month. And my wife Cassie and I looked at each other and we said, I just don't know if we feel like we need to stay where we are in San Diego for this next year. So we can get into the story more, but eventually we kind of decided to make a change and be closer to home. So we moved here about late May, and we moved into our new home in about July or June 11th it was.
Wow.
So are you actually swimming at UNC? I mean, are you training? Because Mark Gangloff is the new head coach at UNC. So it's his first year, right? Or is it his second year?
This is his second year.
Second year. Okay, so second year, yeah. His first year he didn't have an NCAAs. That's why I kind of feel like nobody really had that year. But yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. So his first year, not the best way to finish your first year. We strongly believe that it would have been a very successful first year, but obviously with COVID had other plans for that. But going into the second year, we're really excited to see where the UNC program goes.
Yeah. So why did you move? Was it just family? What brought about that's a huge decision.
Yeah, it is. It is a huge decision. I think when the Olympics got postponed, it's very challenging to look at one more year and say, because everyone knows an Olympic year is very different from other years. There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of commitment, and you basically go into it saying, I can do this next year and give it everything that I have, knowing that afterwards I can reset. And we can make different plans. And when Cassie and I moved to San Diego, we basically committed to that time frame. It's like, we'll be far from home, we'll be far from family, but we can definitely do this for a few years, and we can really try to make something special happen. And really, the Team Elite was everything we could have wanted it to be. I strongly believe that the summer would have gone well for me, but again, COVID had different plans. The world had different plans for what was going to happen. So I think from our decision, I think we would feel more comfortable going somewhere else and trying something different this next year than maybe trying to repeat what we just did. Oftentimes I tend to get a little bit, when I try to repeat what I've already done, I tend to get bored and lose interest. And everyone knows in swimming, that's not the way you want to train.
Right. So
is Cassie from, I'm sorry, Kelly, I stepped on you. Is Cassie from the North Carolina area too?
She actually lived in Chapel Hill growing up for a little bit. So we met at school at the University of Missouri. But she actually lived in Chapel Hill for about 2 years when she was younger. So it was kind of a homecoming for her as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Full disclosure, I swam at NC State, so I.
But hey, I have 2 children who graduated from Carolina, so.
Yeah, so we already have that battle going on with your co-host here. But what I was wondering is how you emotionally felt. I mean, obviously you got up and moved when the Olympics were postponed, but just can you walk us through a little bit of what emotions, feelings, thoughts that you went through when you heard the cancel or the postponement of the Olympics?
That's a great question. In March, I think the way I would describe it is it all happened so quickly. Looking back, it felt like within 2 weeks the whole world changed. I was just getting back from the Pro Swim Series in Iowa, coming off of a competition where that was our last meet before we started kind of bringing down training. So really, we got through the thick of it, and we were kind of getting to late March, where we were going to starting to polish up and get sharp again. So when all this happened, we were exhausted. The team was tired. We were running on steam in many cases. We had put in a lot of work, and we trained through Iowa. So really, when COVID really ramped up, and all of a sudden, being in California, we went through the stay-at-home order very quickly. So I think when things started to shut down, it started to look like, man, like this looks like something that's not going to go away anytime soon. I think emotionally, I started to prepare for the event that the Olympics might be canceled or postponed. And I think emotionally, it took me a little while to wrap my head around something like that, because again, it's such a big thing to postpone or can't possibly cancel. I think when we finally got the news, there was a mixture of being relieved and being really nervous for going one more year and trying to get in shape again, retrain. But then there's also this other side of it where you're kind of like, well, where can I be in a year? Can I get any better? is that because some people will genuinely benefit from there being one more year of training for next summer. And the people who get on the team next summer are going to be the ones who take advantage of having one more year of training. And that's just kind of where I moved into and said, I just have to be okay. And I have to be flexible enough to move with where this decision has gone, and just trust that going into next summer, I'll be prepared. So there's never an easy way or a straightforward way with coping like something like this. We all have our different ways of coping. I think me and my wife's way of dealing with this was partly just changing it up and trying something new.
I love that. Gosh, what an optimistic approach, and just thinking this is another year that I'm just going to get better and be one of those people that's positively affected by this. So, well, that's wonderful. And it leads into one of our favorite questions to hear from our champions, because we all have obstacles, is what is the biggest obstacle that you've ever overcome in your life?
Yeah, so I've always said that we as people are formed more by our disappointments than our successes. I genuinely believe that. We have success and it's temporary. Success is fleeting within a week. Who of us have not gone to NCAAs and come back the next week after a great meet and then been totally empty afterwards? I mean, it happens to the best of us. But when we go through something really disappointing, there's some sort of fire that comes out of that's indescribable. True champions know how to take disappointments and hardships and turn them into gold. And when I went through 2016 and missing the Olympics, that year leading up into basically from when I broke out and made the USA national team in 2015, that full year up into missing the team in 2016 was the hardest year of my life. It almost felt like everything I did didn't work. It was like, I made this decision. It was the wrong decision. It was, I tried to do this. That didn't work out. I put my faith in this. That wasn't it. And so leading up into the Olympic trials, I was already struggling emotionally, and I probably wasn't in a good headspace to actually make an Olympic team and would have won an Olympic gold medal on the 400 freestyle relay. I think we all handle successes differently. And for who I am and how I identify myself, I would not have taken that level of success at 21 years of age as well as I would have wanted to. So something like that, looking back, is 100% the hardest thing I've ever gone through. But now, 4 years later at 25, I can say that is, I would not have changed that outcome for anything.
Yeah, we read that or heard that you met your wife right after that, or within a couple of days, and you felt like that was almost what was supposed to happen. Is that right?
So that's a pretty amazing story if you want me to share it.
Sure. Yes, stories. We love stories. Tell us the whole story. We want all the details.
Okay. I don't know if I've ever told the full story on the podcast, so this will be cool. I first met my wife in January of 2016, really in a pass by, nonchalant, total not big deal kind of way. She brought her dog over to a couple friends' house that I was over at, and we waved hello. That was it. Fast forward 4 months. This is when people start to think I'm a little bit crazy. I had a dream. I had a straight up like a dream of a girl that was down a hallway, and turned around and looked at me. And I woke up. It was a Sunday morning, and I was like, that was the weirdest dream ever. It was like I had like this picture of a girl's face, and I went to church with my roommates, and doing the same routine I do every Sunday. I go and get my coffee, and I look across the room, and there's a girl getting coffee, and she looks at me, and I'm like, that is so strange. Like, that is the girl from my dream. And I remember going to the service, and the whole time, like, that was so weird. Like, what is up with that? And I go out and I'm talking to my buddies, and this girl walks up, and I'm like, guys, who is that? Like, have I met her before? And she was like, yeah, that's Cassie. Like, remember she was over at our house like 3 months ago. And I was like, oh, that's who she was. And at the time, I'd always thought that she was dating one of the guys in the group or something. And turns out that they were just friends. And so I had gotten this idea in my mind, like, okay, like clearly, like someone's trying to tell me that I'm supposed to pursue this girl. And, it's the Olympic year. And I just get in my mind, this girl, Cassie, like I should ask her out on a date. So I asked one of our friends, hey, will you ask Cassie to go on a date with me? They were both in the same sorority, knew each other. And she's like, yeah, of course. And she asked Cassie, she said, oh, I'm like, sorry, like things are too busy, like not yet. And so she came back to me and said, oh, she said not yet. Sorry about that. I was like, oh, that's okay. At least she didn't say no. So I guess I got not yet. So I enter like a series of, it's May. And then so I start praying and I'm like, Lord, if you want me to meet this girl or date this girl, like it's in your hands. Like give me just like a miraculous encounter. Cause I might be crazy, just give me some miraculous encounter and I'll know like I'm supposed to date this girl. So I don't see her for 3 months and I go to Olympic trials. Obviously we know the outcome. I didn't make it. And I drive home with my coach Saturday night. We get in Sunday. The guys on my team pull me out of bed, say, hey, we're taking you to this bar. We're going to go hang out and just sit and talk. We'll cheer you up. So we go and we sit all day. We're just talking and we get invited to this house party type thing that a girl in town was putting on. And we're like, sure, why not? Let's go. So we go to this party and I walk in and Cassie's there and I haven't seen her. It's July 3rd. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is the girl I've been trying to date. So I walk right up to her and I'm like, hey, Cassie. And she's like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that's been trying to date me. And she is, it's really funny hearing her tell the story. She was so uncomfortable. She's like, oh my God, why
there's that guy.
Yeah. And, I'm trying to talk to her the whole night. I'm trying to be like that cool swimmer, like, oh yeah, I just missed the Olympics. And, and she said something like, oh, you can try again next year. And she's, she never didn't know anything about swimming. It made it awesome. And, the night's getting later and I'm like, gosh, like if I don't like ask this girl on a date now, like someone else is gonna get her. So I was like, hey, Cass, can I talk to you outside real quick? And she's like, oh, sure. and I was like, hey, like, I know this is weird, but I really would love to take you on a date sometime. She's like, well, let me get your number and I'll text you. And she texted me like a couple hours later and was like, hey, it's Cassie. And I texted her this long message back. I was like, hey, would love to take you out. I think you're awesome. Anytime you want to like go out, I know you're leaving later this week. Just let me know. And she doesn't text me back for like 24 hours. And it's like, sorry, I can't. I'm going to my brother's wedding. And she's like, but ask me when school gets back. So I wait a month, guys. I wait a month. I go home. I'm like, I tell my family about her. Like, I'm like sold. I'm like, I don't know why.
You're half in love and you've not had the first date.
Oh, I've met her like once or twice. And all of a sudden I'm like sold. And so I get back, I wait like a week. School's about to start. And I text her and I'm like, hey, Cassie's Michael. Do you want to go on a date? And so she had actually just dropped her sorority and she had been praying now that the Lord would give her a different path for her senior year. And now that when I texted her, she somehow moved into like a new mindset that was like, you know what, why not? Like this guy's held out long enough. I'll give him a chance. And I'm like, yes. So we go out that next week and we find out that like we have so much in common. So she lived in Chapel Hill growing up. My dad obviously played basketball at UNC. So her whole family are big UNC fans, which, made it easy. I know there's, at least she wasn't a Duke fan.
That could not go forward. No.
Exactly. My mom was a Theta. She was a Theta. Her dad is from Lebanon, and my parents had just done 3 mission trips in Lebanon. So there's a big talking point there. Probably the craziest fact, though, was she vacationed at Carolina Beach growing up, and we have a condo in Carolina Beach, and they stayed at the apartment right next door to ours.
Wow.
So we would vacation the same place and literally we're probably in the same room or the same area at the same time because And she's one of 8 kids. So, that family moves in a pack.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other crazy fact was her dad is friends with the person who set my parents up on a blind date.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, plus you had your faith in common, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And that was a huge thing. So
Yeah.
we, this is, I'll tell the short version of this, but we moved into my senior year and I proposed to her in March of 2017. So we didn't date too long. I pretty much just knew, you heard the first part of the story. I was pretty all in. So I bought a ring over Christmas. I got back to school and I gave it to Mark Gangeloff, who's now the head coach of UNC and my coach again. And I said, "Hey, Mark, I might be insane. I bought a ring. Can you keep it until after NCAAs? Because I might make a bad decision here."
I heard that story. I love that story. Yeah. You're so passionate. You're afraid you're going to propose too early.
Yeah. I was just like, I don't like, I had waited till I told her I loved her until right when I proposed. So that was the thing where I was like, you know what, like the next girl I say it to, I want to make sure that's my wife. So we waited, and then the week after NCAAs, it was pretty awesome. We flew to California and I proposed to her. And we were married 9 months later. So
that is such a great story.
That is a beautiful story. Beautiful story. Oh my gosh, I could picture every bit of that. I love it. So,
I love the way you follow your heart. I just think that's, and you listen to your gut.
Yes.
So
Michael,
go ahead, Kelly.
So you obviously you fell for Cassie quick. You when you want something, you kind of sounds like you obviously go after it. But I'd love for you to share a little bit around how you came to swimming late and what mindset you used to succeed as somebody that didn't, fall into the pool at 4 or 5 and become really successful as an age grouper like a lot of swimmers do.
Yes. Yeah. So you in my introduction, you said that I was cut from the 7th grade basketball team. That was the defining factor of my age group career, because when I was growing up, I was trying to balance being a basketball player and being a swimmer. And, like any kid growing up, I thought I was the best basketball player. I thought I was great. I thought I had a great jump shot. I thought, just like my dad, just like my brother, I'd be a great basketball player. And when I was trying to balance that with swimming, I was doing summer league and, I was swimming a little bit throughout the year, but it really wasn't a thing yet. So when I got cut from the basketball team, I was mad. I was like, well, if basketball is not going to be my thing, swimming's got to be my thing. And I was very fortunate in that I had about 3 coaches that really believed in me growing up. One of them being David Marsh. And anyone who knows David Marsh, his eye for talent is absolutely incredible. And he saw something in me at 13, 14 years of age that he fostered. He wasn't hands-on all the time, but he had a mastermind plan for me, and he was smart. He's crafty, man. He put this idea in a kid's head at like 14 years old. He was like, he brought the team elite swimmers at the time who were training down the pool, and he brought them over and, to introduce them to me. And he's like, Michael, your best swimming is going to be after college. So
Wow.
I was never thinking, how do I swim in college? I was thinking, how am I going to swim after college? So, and I honestly, I was not good until my senior year. So I barely got my junior national cut by 2 100ths of a second and 100 breaststroke the summer before my senior year. And that was good enough for me to be slightly recruited by a few schools and offered a 15% scholarship by the University of Missouri, that being the only school to offer me a scholarship. So when that happened, I was like, well, Missouri is where I'm supposed to go, and it was between UNC and Missouri, interestingly enough. And now I'm at UNC. So when I'm looking at the grand scheme of things, what kept me going in the sport of swimming was a huge level of belief in the people around me, that being my parents and that being my coaches. And I've always said that before the age of 15, a large majority of the ownership has to come from the coaches and your parents in sports. I don't think we are quite mature enough to be able to fully understand what we're training for, even if we have a world of talent. We have to be kind of fostered into that world of success. So before the age of 15, I had all these amazing people, including my parents, who saw something in me that I did not. And then once I got to the age of like 16, 17, 18, I started to believe it for myself. And I started to move more toward this idea that I can actually be something in the sport, even if I don't see it yet. So when I officially committed to the University of Missouri and signed those papers, it was almost like I had this like burden off my chest and I could just start swimming freely. And I started to actually then have success at the end of my senior year and then move into college and really start to enjoy the sport.
That's great.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like, I'm sorry, Maria. I'm riveted. Go. I've taken too many questions. Go.
You've described, or I guess I've gotten this impression of you as sort of a late bloomer, which I think works really well with this delayed Olympic year. Because if you think of yourself, if you framed yourself as somebody who comes a little bit after other people and and the story you've just described is exactly that. And we read that you said, throughout the course of our lives, we are constantly reforming who we are. Can you explain what that means to you and how others can use that concept to become champions?
Absolutely. So I've always looked at my life really in 4-year increments. That's really, it lines up right with the Olympic quad. But, I strongly believe that we are never exactly who we are throughout our entire life. I think we go through a seasons of change and growth, and we change with the hardships and the successes that are brought into us. As champions, no one is a champion forever. You know what I mean? We're going to be a champion in one area of life, whether that's swimming or an area of work or school or whatever, but we always move out of that and into something else. And one of the amazing things about looking at life in 4-year increments is no one is the same at 12 years old as they are at 16. And no one is the same at 16 as they are as 20 to 24 and so on. It's a very short, it's a small window of time where you can really analyze exactly who you are. For example, at 21 years of age, I was trying out for the Olympics as a single guy who was not invested in the things that I am today. Now at 25, I'm married. Life looks a little bit differently than it did at 21. And really at 21 years of age, I would never have seen what life could have looked like for me right now at 25. So we don't always have a clear picture of where we're headed, but it's a combination of trust and faith in something greater than ourselves that leads us to these amazing new parts of who we are. I think one of the I'd say hardships that a lot of people in this generation growing up right now has is they want to see exactly who they are now. And, my encouragement for them is if we get so caught up in who we are today, we lose track of what we're going to become tomorrow and 4 years from now. Growth is a constant thing, and we can't be so caught up with this stagnant foundation. We have to build on top of it. So that's kind of what I mean by that.
It sounds like, in addition to what you said, Maria, about Michael, that he's a late bloomer, but it also sounds like you are willing to do some really long range planning. Like if somebody told me at 15, you're going to be good after college, that's a long range plan. And even looking at your relationship with Cassie, you met her and were very patient and long range plans of, okay, it's not going to happen this spring. It's not going to happen this summer. I'm going to text her in the fall when we come back to school. That's a characteristic that you've obviously demonstrated. Would there be other characteristics that either you know about yourself or that you see as a commonality in champions?
A huge commonality I see in champions is the overarching principle of being the best you. It's interesting. I don't think there is a general champion like cookie cutter mold that fits everyone, if you know what I mean. So when I look at all of these people who have been successful in all these different areas, they're very different. A lot of times you can find huge similarities, like a very strong sense of determination, perseverance, a huge sense of faith in something greater than themselves, very strong emotionally, physically, mentally. There's all these big things, but the biggest thing I've seen is they maximize who they are. for me, I've moved more to this sense of identity and as a Christian man who is doing sport in life, like that is my foundation, and I try to build up on that. The moment that I start to get away from that, I start to lose sight of who I am. And we all have to do this kind of soul searching of, how we are made and what gives us strength. Because again, like when you're looking at sport, we don't have sport forever. And the moment I tell my wife this all the time, the moment that you see me sacrificing my foundation for this sport is the moment you need to tell me to stop. If you see me start going downhill and I start to sacrifice too much for this thing, I have sacrificed who I am. And you need to tell me to stop. So until that day, I'm going to keep going full force in the sport of swimming to maximize my potential and who I am. And fortunately, I have someone like her to stand by me and to build me up and not to break me down. And I think we all need that as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wonderful. Well, let's see. So,
oh wait, I want you to ask him a question about a product, Kelly.
You do? Well,
yes.
Okay. Well, but before we go there, yeah. I do want to know what your proudest moment is. I'd love to know that because you have such a a rich life. I'd like to know.
Great resume. Mm-hmm.
Is this in swimming or is this in life?
It just proud. It just
anywhere, swimming, life, the whole thing.
I mean, I'll still say that first date with my wife was a home run. I mean, the wedding was great, but we had gotten to that point. It was getting the first date that was the hard thing.
Yeah. I observed too that you get these markers in your life, the dream, the words of Coach Marsh, and you believe in them and you hold on to them.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny when I look at like something that is like, what is the biggest thing? Like my most proud moment. It's difficult to say that because my wife will tell you this too. I have a tendency to live in the future and not the past, unless it's a like huge like disappointment that I've had. Sometimes I dwell on that, but when it comes to successes, I tend to forget about them pretty quickly because I'm looking towards the next thing. It's really when it comes to disappointments and struggles that sometimes I have a tendency to look back on, and then my mind starts to stir on how I can fix that. So like when it comes to like, missing a team or having a bad race or, hurting someone's feelings or saying something stupid, like that's where I maybe live partly in the past. And I'm like, gosh, like, why did I do that? That was so dumb. And one area of maturity I've really tried to grow in is letting those things go away and not focusing on those. So like in the swimming world, in the swimming successes, I look at, the NCAA and getting second my senior year and breaking 41 seconds. And I look at being on world record relays and stuff like that. That's been really highlighting and it brings me joy when I think about this sport. But I think, again, like what I was saying, I'm just really excited for where the future goes.
I think that's an amazing trait of champions, that
it is
to be focused in the future.
And you did open the show by saying that you learned so much from your difficulties, so there's a difference between dwelling on them and learning from them.
Yes, for sure.
Yes. So Michael, you are now a pro swimmer. I mean, you've been for several years, but being a pro, you get sponsors and you get to, swim in the International Swim League. But tell us about a sponsor that you and I connected on. Prior to this call, we determined that we both love a product that sponsors you, and I would love for you to share that with our listeners.
Yes, so we connected on a product called the Squatty Potty. If you don't know what the Squatty Potty is, it is a stool that goes under your feet to help bodily functions happen easier, to say it, as straightforward as possible.
A stool for your stool? Oh, we might want to cut that.
Honestly, that's maybe I need to pitch that to them as their new slogan. Their slogan right now is the easiest way to number two. Oh, no, sorry, the number one way to number two. The number one way to number two.
That's really clever.
Yeah. So, it's really been, I mean, I think so CG is my agent, and when CG and I sat down, and he's been my agent now for a few years, we really wanted to maximize, what makes me as an athlete and what brings me really joy when I think about partnering with companies. And the biggest thing is I just really want to have fun with, these sponsorships. I think the moment that it becomes, the business becomes more important than the game, I start to really not enjoy it. And when they're talking about Squatty Potty, like Jacob Pebley and I have had a blast filming stuff like this. And we've done some stuff with Tall Slim Tees, and that really is what brought this Squatty Potty partnership into light, was through that company. And we have really enjoyed, I guess, using these Squatty Potties and bringing it to light in the swimming community. And we've had so many people come out and saying, "Oh, we love the Squatty Potty. It's the best thing we've ever used." And I think that's just been a really, really fun for us, is finding this commonality between all these different people.
Yeah, and you're, like they say, you're preaching to the choir here. We have 4 Squatty Potties in our house, and we love them and think that they're a great product. So it's just funny that we connected. And Maria, tell the story of when you visit our house.
Yeah, I went to the bathroom, and the Squatty Potty is there beneath the throne. And I was like, "Kelly, what is this?" And she explained how well it worked. And now I'm going to invest in some Squatty Potties.
Yeah. So anyway, that's cool that, you're getting, you're having fun with your sponsorships. And that's the way, cool. We're now in a new partnership with CG Sports Network. So, and what's really funny is prior to booking you and even starting this podcast, we did not know, because we're new, that you were part of CG Sports Management. So that's just really cool. Another serendipity. But when we do podcast sponsorships, we want to endorse products that we know will be great for our listeners and that we genuinely and authentically love. So it sounds like you're doing that, Michael, and it's great. So in the interest of time, we're going to go to the last question before the sprinter round, which we always love it when we have a real sprinter with us.
That's right.
Yeah. So one last question. Is there anything that we have not covered that you would like our listeners to know?
The biggest thing, I think, when I really enjoy doing podcasts like this, one of the things I always try to emphasize is, when it comes to being a champion, one of the things that all champions have in common, when we talked about this, overarching idea of having this true self, is having this purpose-driven life. And that's something that I've really tried to maximize, and a lot of my competitors have really maximized, is what is your why? And when talking about this, I really encourage everyone to sit down and try to understand what your purpose is and what your why is. And when it comes to my why, it's bringing this truth, this belief that this world is far bigger than we can possibly understand or imagine, and that there is actually a story being told. And when I read like a book like the Bible, and I read what it really means and represents, and what the story is with Christ coming for my sins, and now where my life is, and what my path is, and this faith that I get to have, and this joy I get to have in life, that's my encouragement for people, is find your joy. I think happiness and this love of life, and to be a champion is not just in what you're doing, it's being a champion in this big picture of called life. We can all be a champion in one thing, but how much more meaningful is it to be a champion in life? So that's my encouragement. Let's all move towards this purpose-driven lifestyle. That would be my big thing to leave on.
I love that. And
I do
Maria,
too.
Maria and I just finished our certification for being a health coach and a life coach. And that is the number one question that they trained us to ask when working with clients is, what is your why?
Yep.
And in this difficult time, so great to helicopter up, and as you say, realize that we're all part of a bigger story. So encouraging.
Yeah, and I really think that if we put our foundation really tests this thing called life. And if we put our foundation, for example, in a thing called swimming, which is a great thing, it looks very good, and it brings a lot of emotional and mental and physical security every day when I have a really good workout or whatever. It's really easy to put it in that. The hard part is when you weather life, sometimes that foundation proves to be not the strongest. And when in something like swimming, something that possibly seemed to never be taken away, I think we all would agree that sports have always kind of seemed invincible no matter what was going on in the world. It was always an escape. That was taken away for a few months, and there is still no for sure certainty in sports in the future. So where we put our foundation is how we build our foundation is the most important thing. So yes, that question what is your why? That is my challenge to everyone listening.
Oh, I love it.
What a great note to end this part of the interview on. Excellent. Thank you, Michael.
Yes, and now the fun stuff, the sprinter round. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Take your mark.
Cat or dog?
Cat.
Red or blue?
Blue.
Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Milk chocolate.
Kickboard or no kickboard?
Kickboard.
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Football or baseball?
Football.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning person or night owl?
Mixture, but mainly a night owl.
Ah, okay. Boxers or briefs or boxer briefs?
Oh, boxer briefs.
Okay, Maria's got a few for you.
Okay, which super short answer here, Michael. Favorite color?
Carolina blue.
Okay, appropriately said. Favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni.
Favorite vegetable?
That's difficult. Broccoli.
Okay, favorite.
Okay, we got it, Michael.
Sorry,
we got to tell you there. Jason Lezak said,
"What's
we
a
have
vegetable?
to eat vegetables."
That's right. He said, "Yeah." Oh,
He
vegetables.
We have to eat vegetables.
That's awesome.
You sprinters.
Yeah. Favorite swim complex you swim in the U.S.?
Probably IUPUI.
For the non-swimmers out there, you have to tell me what that is.
Indianapolis.
Yes, sorry. That is the Indianapolis Natatorium.
Okay. Something on your pre-race playlist.
I really like the Christian rapper Lecrae is probably one of my favorites. And then also I like the bands The Head and the Heart. It's a kind of a folk band. And then I'll leave it at those two.
Okay. What's your shoe size?
13.
Siblings.
I have an older sister, Bethany, who has 5 kids, and an older brother, David, who has 2 kids.
Wow. Favorite Star Wars character?
Definitely Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, we like that answer. Okay. And can you cook?
Can I cook or will I cook?
Either.
Can I cook? I can grill meat pretty well. I actually recently just bought a Pit Boss, and I've been experimenting smoking meat. I smoked pork shoulder last week, and that was awesome. And we grilled burgers and whatnot. So that kind of stuff, I really find my lane in. But when it comes to meal planning and actually executing meals, I'm not the best at, and my wife is incredible at it. So I can kind of cook, but not great.
Okay. All right. Last question. What word comes to mind when you dive into the water?
Probably like be free. And that's not one word, but like the phrase be free is kind of like, I kind of think of swimming as like, when you're on the block, you're kind of like, you're being, contained, and then you're kind of let go. It's like, let go. And I've always thought about like when I hit the water, just that's the moment. And my best races have come when I just stop thinking. And it's not even that I choose not to think. I just don't need to, like I think sometimes it turns into just don't think, Michael, don't think. But it almost turns into I don't need to think. I've done the training. I've done this a million times. I get to just enjoy this. And I think that's the biggest thing when we talk about champions is champions enjoy what they're doing. it's when they get to execute this moment where they've been training for, it's like the biggest release they can possibly have, and they get to just be free.
Oh,
Love it.
So
Love it.
great.
Yeah, like unleashed.
Yeah,
You're
I love that.
unleashed.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, Michael, this has just been such a joy and a pleasure for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Yes.
it was just delightful. Thank you so much, Michael. Take care and good luck to you.
Thank you. All the best.
Best of luck.
Takeaways, takeaways, takeaways. We've heard from you that your favorite section of our podcast is the takeaways. Thank you so much for that feedback. But before we get to the takeaways today, we wanted to ask you if you would please give us a 5-star review. That way, more people will be able to find our podcast. Also, if you could subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify, you'll never miss a podcast episode if you subscribe. And please share our podcast with your friends. And now, the takeaways.
Well, Maria, that was amazing and just so thoughtful and deep and just wonderful. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. After we stopped recording, I just said, "You're so articulate, Michael." And he said, "Well, my dad, I guess I'm in a preacher's family, so maybe it comes by naturally." But I loved how, he's obviously thoughtful and passionate. And I loved how he presented his thoughts so clearly. He was a delight to talk to.
Yes. Really, that was him having people around him was my first takeaway, that he is someone that has had this extraordinary belief. Obviously, he has a great faith in his spirituality. But my first takeaway was that when you're a young person, and maybe even not young in age, but new at something, that the belief in people around you, that they support you and they believe that you can do this, maybe someone who is an expert at it, really was what he put his faith in. I mean, when David Marsh told him at 13 that he was going to be good one day, maybe even after college, that he believed that. He just said at that young age that he couldn't grasp everything. So he had a belief in people around him. And I just love that.
I did too. And I love that he held that as a light, for his life. Okay. David Marsh said I was good. Yeah. And so I'm going to be good.
Yeah. What was your first takeaway?
Oh, so mine was, I loved his, we opened the show with talking about his move from San Diego to Chapel Hill. And I love that he is continually looking at his life and, changing things up and trusting himself to change things. He talked about reforming himself. I like that sort of, I think that kind of comes from confidence and trusting yourself, that you can say, this isn't working. This doesn't feel right now. I'm going to change. And it's okay to change. It's okay to change things up. It's okay to, I'm going to be a different person in 4 years than I am from now. I love that ability to trust in the process of growth, I guess is what you'd call it.
Yes. Really, really good stuff. And keeping things fresh. I love that. Loved it.
Yeah.
So my second takeaway was his ability to it was kind of a combination of two. He is definitely a long range planner and looks at the future. And this, I'm just going to quote one of my favorite authors, Joe Dispenza, says that we all have to have a vision of the future, that we need to look forward and not backwards, and that a lot of problems that people have in life is when they're looking backwards. Michael said he lives in the future and long range plans. And I even said it during the podcast that he was willing to wait to date his wife from the spring all the way till the next fall. That's just that was long range planning, and long range planning in looking at, hey, I'm only 15 now, but I may be good when I'm post college. I mean, that's long range planning. So I think looking in the future and maybe that's just patience, Maria.
Yeah, I think that's right. And he also said that he he was working, and maybe he's changed in this way and not dwelling on the past mistakes, but that when he looked at the past, he tended to focus on his mistakes. He said that you learn from your mistakes, which you sure do. So yeah, I like that he's looking towards the future with hope and optimism too. Not a, not fear, but just, I totally agree. Well, my second takeaway was, he about being the best version of himself, of being, the best that he could be, the best person, that God created him to be. And, he ended, of course, with this idea of the purpose-driven life. And I like, and I think that's a really great takeaway, that we can all focus on, we're all different. We all have different talents, abilities, as he said, swimming might go away or whatever, but I can be the best version of myself, right now, and continue to work towards that.
Yes, I love that. And I think he felt that that's a commonality that champions and successful people have, that they're the best version of them. And I right. do, that they're authentic, they're who they are, and that shines through and makes them be able to be free. So be free to win and free to be the best they can be. So really great stuff. There were a lot more takeaways, and hope that you got a chance, that you guys got a chance to listen to all of them. Yeah, that was a terrific interview. Well, Maria, you have a bunch of people coming to your house for dinner, so you better go. I got a dinner party. All right. Okay, I love you, sister. Talk soon. Talk soon. Bye. Bye-bye.
This week's quote of the week comes from Michael Chadwick. We are formed more by our disappointments than our successes. Success is fleeting, but there is some sort of fire that comes out of disappointment that is indescribable.
You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast with host Kelly Palace and Maria Parker. Champions Mojo is produced by Cabra Media, and a new episode debuts every Tuesday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Follow Champions Mojo on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook @Champions Mojo.